First of all, I want to ask some questions that I really need answers about addiction. And I want to people like who follow me on YouTube to also understand more about addiction. So thank you for giving us this time, Anna. I've been following with you myself, you know that for like a few weeks or a few months now, about my journey as well. I think you know my story as well as everybody because I talk about publicly. But first, thank you again for giving us time. And I want to know something about you. Tell me 1 minute about Anna. Who's Anna Barbosa?
Who's Anna?
Yeah.
Okay, $1 million question. So my name is Anna, and I am a relationship coach. My focus is on supporting people to understand how to better create relationships and maintain relationships based on what's good for them and recognize their own needs. And sometimes it's so hard for us to do that because most of us were brought up in households that do not teach us how to do that. So for me, it's something that I take as a personal mission, because I was also raised in a household that didn't teach me how to have a better relationship with myself and better relationship with, you know, things around me and people around me and communicate about my needs. So I understand the effects that this environment had on me, and after a long journey of healing, now I'm excited to share everything that I build and everything that I gain in terms of knowledge with my clients. So that's in a nutshell, that's who I am as a coach. And yes, and
Yeah.
we know each other for a few months now, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's actually the pleasure is mine. I wanted to ask about addiction. So let's jump directly onto the topic that I feel like most people are suffering from different type of addiction, but I'm talking about the addiction that harms your life, that causes your life to become like unmanageable, as the 12-step programs say about it. I talk more about drugs, alcohol. There's other people also talking to me about porn addiction, which is I didn't talk in my channel yet about it. That goes to my I had a personal experience with porn. I had a personal experience with some stuff, but I don't feel like I'm not ready yet to talk about it. I'm still discovering some stuff myself about this type of thing, and because of I got married too, so that affects how I preserve sexual life, and it's more like something I don't like to talk about. But it's also addiction that I have a lot of people talking like asking me about porn. But let's focus on addiction in general, whether it is drugs, alcohol, or porn. What is addiction? And if you want to dive deep into addiction, to say what causes addiction.
Addiction is a form of survival. Honestly, it's a natural response to a stressful environment, a stressful reaction. So we develop this addictive personality young in our lives, and that's usually a side effect of trying to survive a stressful, chronically stressful environment, whether it's abuse, whether it's neglect, or whether it's anything, abandonment. So it's a way of us to naturally cope with pain, emotional pain. But what we don't know is that it's something that every human does, but it's not sustainable in the long run. So when you're talking about hard addictions, like for example, drugs or alcohol, those are the ones that society tells us that are wrong, right? Those are the worst because they show the effect of those addictions on our bodies faster, and they also tend to affect our interpersonal relationships with our parents, with our families, because when we are on drugs, we cannot communicate at all. We become reclusive, or people start stealing to support their addiction. So it spirals, tends to spiral, right? Not necessarily, but it can spiral. So those are the hard addictions. But there are other, of course, types of addiction, like you mentioned, that one could argue that also can get out of control, obviously, like anything, but they're more covert and socially accepted. Like, for example, if you go to the gym a lot, somebody might say, oh, this is great, but Yes,
Yeah.
but if you're doing too much to try to hide your emotions because you're unable to feel them, then it can actually become something bad. But until society sees it as bad, it will take longer. Likely to take longer.
I always have that you have a problem. I always have that you have a problem with the gym, like
no, not at all. It's always a matter of us knowing why we're choosing what we're choosing and how to do it. So
but it's funny because it's type of that how I start approaching people who are I'm sometimes mentoring or coaching or just talking about how sport you can build it as a habit or as an addiction or whatever, like just to start removing the bad habit that you have. Like this is how I start doing it. So after that, you start do the internal work, which is we're gonna talk about, like fix the roots of the addiction itself.
And that's very important because when people are on a path that is hard for them to stop, any action that supports them in their healing process is going to come a long way, right? So, for example, if somebody is right now spiraling with drugs and they have the opportunity to learn how to exercise, how to eat healthy, how to, have developed better healthy habits on a day-to-day basis, that's great because it will definitely feed that sense of self that is missing. And in parallel to that, a very important complement to make sure that this behavioral change is sustainable is the component associated with how to feel. Because ultimately, nobody is choosing a coping mechanism because they don't know better necessarily, right? Like there's an emotional component, there is a need, a missing piece inside of us, whether we were not nurtured enough, whether we were not validated enough, whether there was a lack of attention, a lack of support, a lack of something that was primary, usually coming from our primary relationships, like our parents or family members. So it's important that the sustainable change that we're promoting as coaches happen when we are tackling both the behavior and the mindset. When both of them walk hand in hand, the sustainable change that we're going to see in that person is very likely going to stick, and that person is going to see the benefits both internally and in the outside as well.
Yeah.
So when we're seeing the relationships improve, we're seeing the relationships with themselves, with their choices, with their family, with their friends, and also this is going to, of course, trickle into a better life.
And that's why I want to ask you about what is the relation between the roots of addiction, or like why people start to become an addict? How is it related to the relationships? As you say, because you're a relationship specialist, that's why I even work with you on my relationship with myself first, and with others, with family, with whatever, like people around me. So how do you see that rate? Because there's a big problem I see, like with a human being in general, that they don't have the awareness about what's going on in their emotion. Because right now, some people will be watching us and will be like, yeah, what they're talking about, or like what kind of emotion? Like, okay, I feel angry sometimes, I feel horny sometimes, I feel whatever. Like it's just like the intense emotion that you're used to it. But tell us more about how relationship and how emotions cause you to go in addiction, and how relationship is also related to that.
Of course. So let's take, for example, a case of a parent talking to a child. The child, let's say it's a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, and that child is having a tantrum because the child wants something, and the child is screaming, and the child doesn't know how to say, I'm frustrated, I wish I had this, but I don't have it, therefore I'm upset. The child doesn't know how to formulate and understand their emotions so clearly, so they're going to have a tantrum. When you have a parent who doesn't know, or it's not able at that point in time to handle that emotion, that parent may accidentally think that they're going to intervene in a better way for that child, but it might in fact be, suffocating the child, and it might be telling the child that emotion that the child is expressing is bad. So that the parent may come and say, hey, stop crying, or stop yelling, or you should know better. You should know that you should not do this. You should know that you're not going to get this, whatever it is that the child wants. But of course, if this happens chronically throughout the child's upbringing, the child is receiving a message that the emotions that that child is showing usually are negative emotions like upset, frustrated, resentment. They are wrong, and the child should not show them, should not have them, and should not show them, because that's going to negatively affect the parent, whether it's the parent not knowing how to handle it, or the parent not wanting other people to see it too. So the parent might be punishing the child for those emotions. And that child, yes, may become, and very likely will become, an adult who's going to be functional, very likely. But that doesn't mean that that adult knows how to handle those emotions. Very likely that child learn coping mechanisms, whether from their parents or from their friends around them, in order to find the closest thing to happiness. Because we all want to be happy. We all want to be happy, but we don't know how to, because very likely we were raised in a household where our parents were also not very happy. So the closest thing to happiness for somebody who is suffering as a child and who's becoming a teenager and who's becoming an adult is to find relief. Relief is the middle step, is the intermediate step towards happiness. But a lot of the times we get stuck in finding relief. So every time, even as adults or teenagers or children, when we are feeling frustrated, we're feeling angry or anxious, we might self-soothe because that emotion is too much inside and we don't want to handle that. We don't know how to. And we don't want to upset our parents. We don't want to make anyone worry about us. So that's when we look for things that make us feel relief, like a comfort. So whatever it is that we were taught to make us feel better at that one time. So it doesn't need to be something sustainable. But if I'm somebody who drinks alcohol, for example, and I learned that every time that I'm anxious or worried, if I drink a glass or 2 glasses, that this is going to make me feel calmer, more relaxed, and less worried, I'm going to associate anxiety with a form of medication, self-medication, using alcohol as a medication. And of course, depending on how stressful my environment is or how stressed I become without knowing how to handle it, I may need more and more of it to actually calm down. So this looking for relief is that unconscious motivation that we have because we don't know how to self-soothe in a different way, right?
Okay. So I actually, okay. So let's move into, let's get the roots. I understand it myself, even I'm thinking about it like, some people got abused when they were children, or they got heartbroken, or they was treated with abundance, or father wasn't there, or mother, like whatever it is, or he was harmed, or he was maybe sexually harmed, or whatever, But now he understand that. He get, some people take it as a reason. I'm addicted, like I'm an addict because blah, blah, blah happened to me. So let's move in the solution. You know me, I'm a solution seeker, but at the same time, I want people like to think like for real, like to understanding the cause of the problem is half of the solution, or maybe even more. But how can you release that? Like, let's say somebody's anxious, like now somebody's watching us. Okay, I'm anxious, I'm angry, I am I crave that attention, or give that love that I didn't have. I want to do that. I want to like, give me something, like solve this problem for me. Like, what can I do? Like,
Well, first of all, it's important that we recognize that if we are choosing some addictive behaviors that might be detrimental to us, which by definition, I believe that when we're saying that something is addictive, it's because it already got to the point of very likely being detrimental or affecting us. So when we get to that point, we really need to start first acknowledging that we gain from being victims too. And that's a hard statement, because there's something that is valuable sometimes in maintaining ourselves as a victim in our own lives. And that's because we weren't taught to believe that, every time that I'm in rock bottom, people that are usually selfish in my family, that's when they pay attention to me. I need sometimes to be in rock bottom, exhausted from life, like having to go to a center for rehabilitation. I really need to get to a horrible space so that people around me that should be nurturing me and should be paying attention to me and taking care of me they actually decide to do that, and even as adults. But that's something that we don't want to say this out loud, right? We don't want to say that it benefits us sometimes when we're not able to take care of ourselves, because that's when we get the attention that we were craving, and we don't know how to communicate that that's what we want. So a very important step, and this is something that a coach can help with, or multiple coaches can help with, is getting to that point, which is a harsh truth to admit to ourselves, that, you know what, I don't know how to maintain healthy relationship with my family, with my parents, unless they feel that they need to come and rescue me. That's the only relationship that is close to receiving love that I can get from my family. So, you know, that's what I know. And I'm afraid that if I stop needing them in my rock bottom, if I start empowering myself, and if I start becoming well and, you know, balanced and, you know, put together, that they're not going to come and rescue me. And if they don't come and rescue me, I'm afraid I'm going to be alone.
Yeah, but now I'm talking about the part that he understands that he has a problem. He was treated in the past badly that caused him to become an addict. How he can solve that issue? Like, okay, I understand that, but I quit taking that drugs or that relief. I don't feel good. You know, like this is what most of the guys are asking me. Okay, I stopped. I do my best. I stop. Then, okay, I try to work on myself. Then, but I'm not happy. Mm-hmm. You know.
Recognize your needs, emotional, psychological, and physical needs. Recognize them. If you need them, write them down. When you know your needs, you will take the first step towards becoming empowered. When you are empowered, you realize that it's going to be up to you to find resources around you to meet those needs. So, for example, I have a need to talk, to have people in my world to listen to me. So once you recognize that need, you're going to look for a solution that is going to meet that one need. So I'm going to seek out, let's say, addiction groups. I'm going to reach out to coaches. I'm going to reach out to psychologists. I'm going to reach out to people that can listen to me in a space where I feel safe. That's a need that I can meet. Another need, I need to be nurtured. I need somebody who I want a relationship where I feel that I'm being taken care of. So if that's a need, then you can look at your current relationship, whether it's romantic, whatever primary relationship you have, and realize, am I in this relationship having my needs met? Yes or no? If I am having my need met, that's great. If not, this is the time when you become conscious and you can find a solution for yourself. This relationship is not working. I need to find another relationship. So the recognition and awareness of what you need when you need it, and the resources around you that are all there for you to look for and walk in that direction, that is, in summary, what we are here as coaches to support people to accomplish, right? So first things first, recognize your needs. If you don't know how to get out of that space of self-harm, not in the sense of harm, physical harm, but in that sense of still depending on addiction, you need, first and foremost, and this is for all of us, you will see that this is going to appear on your needs list. You need people. You need people who love you, who make you feel protected, make you feel safe, make you feel like you are worth it. So look at your relationships around you and start making decisions about, in what ways am I being nurtured? In what ways am I feeling safe? In what ways am I feeling like I matter and my voice matters in this relationship, in this relationship, in this relationship? Recognize that if you don't know the tools, then you can look for the tools, look for the professionals, look for the individuals who can support you with that. But ultimately, and I can tell you this goes for everyone, our degree of happiness is usually associated with the degree of satisfaction we have with our primary relationships. So whether it's family, whether it's husband, wife, so make an assessment, because you very likely are not necessarily conscious of that, but when your primary relationships are not satisfying, are not meeting your needs the way that you want them to, especially emotionally, that's when, we start getting affected and looking for relief until we start empowering ourselves to make decisions. So,
but I actually, like as a problems, solving problem seeker, like I like to solve the problems, but I always have issues with some like things that people are not aware of that. Like we are talking right now, we understand that feelings behind that, So I always suggest people to take a break from life, maybe sit with them without with themselves, without phones, just to understand what they are going through. But as a beginning, it's very difficult for like 18, 19, 20, 23, 25 years guy or girl to understand what's going on, because they didn't recognize their feelings since a long time, since a very long period of time. And there's something they feel like they cannot change it. Like, for example, you have an abusive family, or you have an angry mother, or you have a controlling father, or you have a, you know, like your money situation, financial situation is bad. So like how can like, what's the advice you can give for people who are seeking this, like getting out of addiction, but at the same time they don't recognize the emotion or the feel? Like it's kind of deep. Like sometimes I think about it myself. How can I like you know, how I'll inspire someone to make him be aware of what's going on? Because like right now I have people I'm dealing with, I'm talking with, and I can see the problem. Like there is one guy, for example, he's with his family, and his family is not really supportive, but they're showing love, but in not like what I think is not really a healthy way. But at the same time, the guy or the girl like is depending on them for his money, for his life, and you know, he cannot say a way out because it's a long walk he has to do. So he prefers to stay in that. But he's not self-aware that if he's done the walk, now it's easier for him to go. Like it's gonna take a little bit of time, yeah. But how can I just like switch his mind or his like thoughts to see, okay, this is the problem. You know, it's like a kind of how you can raise the self-awareness within you.
Sometimes it's harder as coaches for us
I'm giving you hard questions.
You're giving me hard. I like that one. So,
but I think this is the issue with everything. If you give someone a self-awareness, that's it. Just leave him. He will solve his problems.
Exactly.
He will find a way, you know?
Exactly. I have to say that the hardest cases for me are the ones that people have internal resistance, right? Like when they're very resistant to wanting to see, you know, what's happening. When this is happening, we need to work with the resistance, right? Instead of working with for example, we have the person inserted in a family system, right? If we are looking at the person and we can assess that that person has a high degree of resistance to changing or to even observing what's happening around them, instead of tackling the family system, I focus on tackling the resistance first. Why are you so resistant to seeing, to experiencing something different, right? So that's what I would focus on. Now, what I recommend in this case is actually making sure that the person redirects his or her focus, right? So for example, sometimes we're so immersed in the chaos that we can only see chaos. We can only see the problems. If you're so close to your life that it's hard for you to take perspective yourself. And that's what you're talking about, right? When you have that epiphany, they're like, oh, now I see it. So, but sometimes you're so immersed that it's very hard for us to get to that point. So you need to first teach that person to take a step back. Like, take a step back. Instead of you focusing on fixing your relationship with your family, fixing your relationship with everyone around you, everything around you is mirroring pretty much your inability right now to actually have a sustainable, happy relation with yourself. So let's take a step back. Don't focus on the external relationship so much. Yes, they're influencing, very likely impacting you and making you still want to self-soothe by choosing whatever it is, food, alcohol, whatever. It's fine. We don't need to transform the world like in 24 hours. It's very unlikely that a behavior that has been sustained for so long is going to change. There are people that can do that, obviously, but it's not everyone. So we can always revert back and say, okay, let's take a step back and let's look for something that gives you a sense of gratitude in your life, right? So what is it that you're grateful for? So this is the beginning of redirecting one's perspective, right? Instead of me focusing on the issue, I'm focusing on something that gives me gratitude. But this is not pretending that the issue doesn't exist. This is not what we're doing. But what we're doing is taking a step back for long enough so that this person can actually take perspective by just redirecting focus for a little bit. As the person is focusing on something that gives them gratitude, that is something that we can continue feeding, continue redirecting that person towards walking in that direction. So let's say, for example, oh, I'm grateful for the time that I spend with my kids. I'm grateful for the time that I spend with this friend or that friend. I'm grateful whenever I have the opportunity to help people. I love helping people. I'm grateful for whatever that is that gives that person gratitude, a sense of gratitude, because gratitude is aligned with sense of purpose. We all want to feel that we're here for something. When we don't know why we're here for, usually that's also in alignment with us being stuck in our problems too. That sense of, oh my God, like life is so bad and exhausting. I don't even know why I'm here. So for you to actually start taking a turn and helping that person to take a turn, I would suggest like a gratitude project, start with redirecting the attention. And as soon as you map out with that person, what is it that in this person's life make them feel a little bit of gratitude, start exploring that a little bit more. Oh, you like helping people. That's great. Why don't we do this more intentionally? I suggest that you focus 5 hours of your week and do some volunteer work. Find a cause that you love. Anything, even if it is whatever that is. You want to go to an addict shelter and help out. You want to go to a homeless shelter. You want to help with lost animals, do whatever it is. But that is going to start feeding you with a sense of that is beyond relief. It's a sense of gratitude. So you have relief, that's a temporary positive emotion that it's kind of like a band-aid. When bad things are happening, you look for your addiction to give you that band-aid, right? Yeah. But when you're doing something that makes you feel gratitude and you feel like, wow, like I'm needed here. These people need me here. These people are actually telling me that what I'm doing is good and that it matters. That's when you start feeling that you matter. And that's when you start feeling closer to feeling happy. And when you are feeling that vibration in terms of that energy, you want more of that, right? So you're going to start looking for more things in that you're doing that's going to give you more and more. And that's not going to be a band-aid like alcohol or something. It's going to be something that will feed your soul. And when you do that, you will automatically start comparing. Wait a second, when I'm with, doing this and this behavior, this doesn't feed my soul. But when I do this and this and this, I feel a sense of purpose being met, being fed. And this is what I'm looking for. That is a lesson that is internal. So better than us telling the person, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. No, the person is experiencing something inside of themselves. It's like there's nothing better than actually going through a change internally to teach you the lesson. So that's what I would do.
So you mean like you can just start to build something that, or focus more on something that give him gratitude, and that time he could just try to maybe take a step back and see how things are different when he do this and do that, and that might give him a source of self-awareness, or might give him a thought of change. Okay, so to close this, I think we took more of your time, but I just want to talk about at the end, we were discussing that last meeting, me and you, about how is the healing comes from doing opposite of the experience that people have, which is really interesting things that you said to me. And I thought about it, and I was thinking about it many times, that people are usually, they are like they are how they say it in English. They are just hungry, or they are looking to connect, and connection makes them feel love and feel the attention. But we just talk about the love. So connection with people makes you feel the love, and I feel like the highest connection is the connection with God, and the normal connection could be with people or with animals, and that gives them the source of love that they need. So if you give them a good experience of love and real connection with a new friends, with a new people, with a therapist, with a specialist, with whoever, like with anybody that comes to them, it's gonna give them a healing for the experience that they got. So can we talk about it in terms of addiction real fast? Like I think we have 1 minute, so
I'll do my best.
Can we just Yeah. So can you just explain how that for an addict could be like, how could that fix, like how to fix his problem?
Yes, of course. So it's exactly that, right? Healing happens when we experience the contrast of the experience that causes the pain that we're trying to stop feeling, right? That's all we're doing with addictions. We're trying to stop feeling the pain, whether it's anxiety, whether it's frustration, whether it's resentment, whatever that is. So again, recognize what is it that you didn't have growing up, right? Recognize that you were in an environment where it was hard for your parents to demonstrate love. That was hard for them to hold you, to give you perhaps physical affection or psychological support or emotional support. And that's when you start recognizing, wait a second, I actually don't want the cigarette. I want a hug. I want a validation. I want somebody to smile at me and look at me in the eyes and listen to me. I don't want the drink. I just want to not feel anxious. And I'm feeling anxious because I'm worried that if I mess it up, that, people are going to hate me for whatever it is. And I don't want to be hated. So, recognize that what we want is what we didn't have. It's a form of love and a form of connection. We all need connection. We all need to feel that sense of belonging, that we belong to people that we love unconditionally. But we were all raised in an environment that, unfortunately, and this because it's humans, we were raised in an environment that told us that the love that we would get would be conditional on us being a certain way, acting a certain way, behaving a certain way. And a lot of the times it made us feel inadequate, made us feel like there's something wrong with us. And that's when we start feeling that sense of chronic shame or chronic anxiety or chronic whatever that is. So, know that the more you feed yourself with the food that was missing in this case, which was the love, the connection, the contact, the validation, whatever that is, when you start feeling that you're receiving that through any relationship, even if it takes just one positive relationship, start with one. Sometimes just get one new friend or one new whatever.
Like I know a guy that he quit alcohol and he got out of depression because of a dog. He got a dog, and that dog changed his life.
Exactly. It really, like, we all want. It's not you. It's not me. It's all of us.
And the funny thing, I'm sorry, like the funny thing, like I had to say that. The funny thing, he was actually going to doctors, psychiatrists, and therapists, and one of them, he had suicided. Like he committed suicide. So that actually made him more depressed and more addict because he's seeing the guy that's supposed to cure him or heal him, and he is like doing that. Like he committed suicide. So he went into more depression. But at the end, a relationship with a dog, because it's pure. I'm sorry to say that sometimes you find the true feelings with the animals that you don't find with the human, but that's true. But that doesn't mean that real love or real connection with the human doesn't exist. It exists, and that's why we're trying to do, like, sometimes like a small community together, or like just meet together, like with people online or whatever, and hopefully, yeah, we try to spread that.
Exactly. And there's a reason why it's easier for us to develop connections with animals a lot of the times. That doesn't go for everyone, but for a lot of people, why is it easier for us to feel connected to our pets, right, than it is with other people? Because that usually goes hand in hand with the amount of suppression that we have to do to live in that, people environment. So if you are suppressing your authentic self in order for you to belong to your friends, right, it's suffocating. It's exhausting to pretend that you're something that you're not. It's exhausting. So when you are with your animal inside your house, that animal is not asking you to change. It's not asking you to be any different than what you are. It's going to accept you exactly as you are. And we are not conscious of that, but it makes us feel so much relief when we are in the presence of somebody, or in this case, a living being that can just accept us exactly as we are. With all of what, quote unquote, flaws, right? And that's all we want. That's what we want, the unconditional belonging. So it's easier for us to even want to give love to that animal, because we know that that animal is not expecting anything. That animal will accept that love that you're able to give, and you will receive that love back, right, as well. So it's a freer relationship, and that unconsciously is what we're looking for in our human relationships too. It's just that it's much harder, especially when you have, sometimes you have cultural expectations, sometimes you have family expectations, sometimes you have so many expectations of
so
who
much
you
stress
should
on you.
be. That creates this chronic stress, like, oh my God, like I cannot be closer to my sister for longer than 30 minutes. I cannot stay in the same room as this person because we're feeling that unconsciously. We know that just by being who we are in that person's presence triggers that person. So we know that unconsciously, oh my God, I need to shut my mouth. I need to stop talking. I need to pretend that I don't have any problem because I don't want to trigger this person. So you're like kind of like suffocating parts of yourself so you can be in that person's presence. And that is something that, you know, ultimately is not sustainable. We want to express 100% of who we are in front of people. But until we get to that point, that's when we need a relationship advisor, a relationship expert, or multiple coaches that can help too. And this doesn't mean that we have all the answers. Not at all, by the way. It just means that the more resources we surround ourselves with, the more we're able to actually learn from other people's experience. So we don't have to break our heads against the wall to figure out things alone all the time. We have people around us that are more than willing to share their life experience and share their gifts and perspectives and skills to support us in our path. So when we start recognizing that we don't need to go through things alone, we don't need to know everything. Nobody knows everything, but we can all join forces and recognize those resources around us. That's when we can start to build what is it that was lacking before.
Thank you so much. Actually, it was, I just want to like summarize about the relationship, because the main thing, the most important thing about addiction, that the cause of it is the roots of the bad feelings, of the things that you carry inside because of bad relationship you have, or the prison, or like the past relationship, whatever you have it. So working on yourself to heal after your addiction and to recover and to become, like, let's say, happy and like to have a healthy relationship with everybody else, you need to understand yourself more, build a good relationship with yourself more, so you can build it with other, and you can live happily ever after. I think it's a work on process, and I just want to know, like, I will leave your information, everything related to you in my video in the description, so anybody want to get in touch. Anna, she has like coaching and like different kind of programs that cause you to understand or to heal after you suffer from addiction, or what type of trauma that you had in life. Especially she had her own experience with family problems, with whatever addiction she has, with food addiction, and we talked about it one time before. So thank you so much again, and hopefully we will meet maybe again. We can make another video to see how people will need to ask some questions about what exactly related to relationships, related to topics what we talked about. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And I really appreciate this time and this opportunity. And thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.